Yes?
Yep.
All right. The chair lays out House Bill 48 and recognizes Chairman Darby to explain this bill.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members. House Bill 48 is aimed at combating the growing issue of organized oilfield theft in Texas. Oilfield theft is a significant and escalating problem, costing the Texas energy industry millions of dollars annually. The current law enforcement response is fragmented, creating enforcement gaps that hinder effective investigation and prosecution. House Bill 48 seeks to address this problem head-on by creating the Organized Oilfield Theft Prevention Unit within the Texas Department of Public Safety. The specialized unit will be dedicated to investigating, arresting, and disrupting criminal networks engaged in oilfield theft. This bill strengthens cooperation between the DPS, local and federal law enforcement, the Railroad Commission, district attorneys, and industry stakeholders. DPS will also provide specialized training to law enforcement officers on oilfield theft investigations. This bill requires DPS to maintain a centralized database tracking oilfield theft incidents and trends, and mandates a biennial report to state leadership. Members, I understand there's a fiscal note, which we just got prior to this hearing. We've submitted a budget rider in the budget for $2.5 million. And we received this fiscal note, which is in excess of that. So we're going to continue to work with DPS and Chairman Bonin to address that delta to ensure that this initiative is fully funded. And with that, members, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. But this bill is supposed to strengthen Texas' ability to fight this oilfield theft problem that we have in the state. So I welcome any questions the committee may have.
All right, members, any questions from Chairman Darby? For Chairman Darby. All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to testimony. The chair calls Sean Hallett. Sean Hallett, all right? Sir, Sean Hallett, we show you registered as Sean Hallett on behalf of Texas. You're a captain at the Texas DPS, and you will be testifying neutral on HB 48. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, you may proceed.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Sean Hallett. I'm a captain with the Texas Department of Public Safety Criminal Investigations Division, stationed here at headquarters in Austin. Happy to be here, happy to answer any questions you may have, testifying neutrally on the bill.
Chairman Darby.
I do have a question. Clearly, we've been working with the DPS on the bill, and thank you for your cooperation. We're trying to address a problem. Clearly, we have a fiscal note, which currently sits at over $7 million.
Yes, sir.
I hope that your agency would continue to work with our office to try to make sure that's a reasonable number.
Yes, sir.
For what we need to do. Other issues we have, because of the proximity of DPS's regional office that covers the Delaware and the Permian Basin, is located out of El Paso. There's some that are concerning, should we locate it there or should we locate it in Austin? Do you have any thought on that?
I think that in speaking with the chief of the Criminal Investigations Division, I believe that probably will be best housed in the Midland-Odessa area. I believe that's where the majority of our investigations are happening right now. So El Paso would be a little far away. I believe that the Midland-Odessa area would probably be a better choice at this time to house that.
Well, I think the idea would be that it has to be in the region, of which El Paso is a member of that region. And so, again, most of the situs of this oilfield theft is in the Permian Basin, Midland Basin, Delaware Basin. So, but I just wanted to make, there's some question as to whether or not you could handle investigations in East Texas or South Texas or North Texas just as easily out of the Midland-Odessa area.
I think that what we see more is that some of our investigations start in Midland, Odessa, but they branch out into other areas of the state. So while all of the companies that we deal with, a lot of them have corporate offices like in the Houston area. And so I don't know that so many of our investigations would be actually in the East Texas region as much as they would branch out that way. And we do have special agents that would be in those areas that could help, help our oil field theft unit housed in Midland. So I don't know that that would be a problem, but I do think that the Midland-Odessa area would be the best place for it at this time.
And somebody might have a question, have we done it before? And sure, we already have a public integrity unit out of Austin, and we also have a public corruption unit. So this is not a novel idea, creating this type of unit, is it?
It's not, no, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your question.
Any more questions from members? Yes. Representative Dyson.
Captain Hallett, could you give a little bit more color? You talked about majority of your investigations, just kind of the types of investigations you've been doing, maybe the numbers of investigations that y'all have been doing out in the Permian.
Sure, yes, sir. Thank you for that. So I can tell you that a lot of our investigations are ongoing right now. And so without getting into any specifics on those, I can tell you that since September of '23, our unit, I say our unit, the folks that we have working out there in that region have made 51 arrests, and they've seized approximately $3.8 million in actual currency and about $2.3 million in other property, $2.3 million worth of property. So we don't have a full unit out there. We have people that are working it. And I believe that Jeremy Orr could also speak better to that than I can. He's out in the Permian Basin working these. But that's kind of the broad overview of what we're doing out there. And we only have a couple of people that are actually dedicated to working that at this point. So the unit would be, you know, a welcome asset from our perspective.
No more questions? Go ahead. Any more questions? Yes, sir. Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Mr. Hallett, for being here, Captain. Can you help us understand the scale and scope of the theft that is happening? So is it, I see the description of the bill, but is it product? Is it material? Is it, and then, you know, you said you confiscated millions of dollars in property, so what kind of property are we talking about? And I just want to get a feel for the scale and scope of this.
Yes, sir. So the answer to that is yes, it's everything. I think, again, I think Jeremy could better talk about the specifics on some of this stuff, but it's everything. Anything that can be stolen, there's anything that's valuable, they'll steal. And so it is crude oil, it is equipment, it is copper wire, it's just everything that's associated with the oil field industry that can be stolen is and will be stolen.
Yeah, we use a lot of expensive materials, you know, specialty products, valves, you know, raw materials, stuff like that. They're taking, when I say product though, I'm talking about the stuff that comes out of the ground. So they're literally stealing crude oil. It's
Yes, sir.
unrefined.
Yes, sir.
Are you the person to ask how that works, or is it someone?
I think that
Are
would
you going to be up
I think
later?
Jeremy
Okay, I'll ask
would
you later.
better answer that question.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions? I do.
Yes, sir.
You noted 51 arrests. What time period was that?
They started these back in September of '23, so we're looking at about 18 months or so.
23 to 25, 18 months, okay. I'm trying to understand the fiscal note implication with respect also to what you're able to do or what your folks have been able to do without an actual unit, specific unit in place.
So I will tell you that in talking with Jeremy and the folks out in Midland, I think that, and maybe he can speak better to this, but from my understanding, they are so overwhelmed at points that there's a lot of times that the local agencies will ask them for help and they have to turn down their help because they're focused on such bigger cases and the landscape that they're dealing with, you know, is so big that they can't just do it all. There's so much theft going on that they can't investigate every single crime of theft that happens out there. And so right now they're having to kind of pick and choose some, and believe me that I don't believe that one unit would be able to handle all of it either, but I think it would make the unit stronger and allow us to do more than what we're doing now.
And so that 3.8 million in currency and the 2.3 million in property that you were able to also seize, was that also during the 18-month period?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think those numbers alone probably justify the expense with respect to any fiscal note implications that we would have.
Yes, sir.
Is this something that you are, well, you're neutral, but that your agency is, if we were to able to assign a specific unit and the funding, that it could undertake and would be willing to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And lastly, I'm going to recommend, I'm sure you probably have, since you're having to deal with this, to Representative Rosenthal to check out Taylor Sheridan's Landman, and you'll see everything that they're stealing in there. This is important. We're going to have Jeremy come up also? Oh, okay. All right. I think I have more questions from him. Any more questions? Members? No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Captain, thank you. The chair calls Jeremy Orr. Jeremy? Jeremy, we show you registered as Jeremy Orr. You're a special agent with the Texas DPS, and you will be testifying neutral on HB 48. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right, Jeremy, you're proceed to testify.
Well, good morning, Chairman and Vice Chairman and the rest of the committee. As previously stated, my name is Jeremy Orr, and I'm a special agent assigned in Midland. And I was one of the first guys that was kind of tasked to kind of go after some of this oil and gas stuff, kind of primarily under the leadership of my lieutenant and my captain. I'm here to answer any questions you may have for me as for what we've been doing.
Yes. Chairman Darby.
To Representative Rosenthal's question about product, I am familiar, and I want to see if you're familiar with a recent incident in Big Lake in which processed oil, was stolen out of 57 frac tanks. 57 frac tanks, each individually holding 500 barrels, was stolen, and it's still under investigation, and it was done so over a period of days, clearly, but that's about $1.5 million worth of product stolen in less than a week in Big Lake, Texas.
Yes, sir. I'm not familiar with that particular instance, but those incidents are not unheard of. It is actually quite frequent across the Permian.
Is there any efficiencies, and again, to Vice Chair's Morales's questioning about the fiscal note? Clearly, that's a lot of money. Over $7 million is a lot of money. But I think what's going to be important is that this committee and members of the Texas House and the Texas Senate understand the magnitude of the problem and the prospect or the efficiencies that could be obtained with a unit. Could you walk through how a dedicated unit assigned to this with additional, I presume, how many's working with you now?
One.
Just you?
Me and one other, sir.
By the way, that black outfit, Chairman Hunter would be so,
Thank you. Thank you.
so jealous of it. But it's just you right now, correct?
There's two of us, sir.
Just two of you,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So walk through kind of what this bill envisions, creating a specialized unit
Yes, sir.
that you train local law enforcement, what to look for, how to investigate, that sort of thing.
And I'll be frank, I promoted March of 2023 and was thrown into this very quickly. So we had to learn by the fly and basically how to adapt and build these investigations when it came to how organized crime groups were targeting the petroleum industry. So there is a learning curve for that. And the goal is that a unit would basically bring in individuals that could specialize and train in this so they're not having to go through the same learning curve I did. We've had great results working under the leadership I currently have, and and the department is backing us. But there is a learning curve that came into diving into the oil and gas industry to understand how is crude oil getting stolen, how is it getting sold in the market, how is ESPs getting shut down when subjects are stealing precious metals. So a unit would basically allow for individuals to specialize in this, receive adequate training, and further those investigations as we continue them, through the Permian and throughout Texas.
Walk this committee through any difficulties you've had dealing with local sheriff's department, local law enforcement, their capabilities, their lack of training in this area,
So the Texas Department of Public Safety our goal is to assist the local agencies in whatever way they need an assist. Obviously, West Texas has a manpower shortage from some of the local agencies, and we do everything we can to facilitate and help them as they address, not only their disturbances and calls for service, but also this growing threat to the oil and gas industry with massive, unprecedented thefts in the area.
Would this task force and unit be able to coordinate with local prosecutors on a more efficient basis?
Yes, sir. It'd be individual, specialized, and basically having that background and experience working these so prosecutors can go and understand. Because right now, I think I cover almost 21 counties of West Texas. You're working with different prosecutors, different offices every time. And as I've worked more and more in these investigations, I get contacted constantly, seeking for guidance and advice on how to work these cases. A specialized unit would have, basically that background and experience that they would be able to go out to these local offices and help facilitate these investigations and success.
I think that's all the question.
Any more questions? Committee members? Yes, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay, so can you paint a picture for us of how this occurs and the scale and scope? So the chairman was talking about the theft of thousands of barrels of oil. Like, do they drive up with trucks and tankers and take it away that way? Or
So I actually teach. I get to go all over Texas and teach. I got to do one of our first classes for DPS, kind of explaining some of the oil field theft we do. And we've seen there's a wide variety of types of thefts, whether it be a fraud scheme where subjects are sent to the location under false pretenses and move the product. We've seen everything from skimming thefts where subjects go and then the process of acquiring wastewater to be disposed of, they're skimming and stealing oil. We're seeing everything from oil haulers that were legitimately contracted to move a product and then stealing it and delivering it elsewhere. And then the big issue we're dealing with is massive organized theft crews of multitudes of individuals that are intentionally targeting the oil industry to steal petroleum product and sell it back at great financial benefit.
So thank you very much. I think that really helps us understand that this is not like individual smash and grab type thieves, right? This has to be an organized operation.
It is extremely organized, and I won't go into ongoing cases because there are quite a few, but it's shocking when you dive in to see how organized it is.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions, members? I do. Sorry. All right, first, based on your experience since 2023 forward, are the laws that we currently have, the criminal laws that we have in place, are they adequate to address any issues that you foresee as far as making sure that we are moving forward as a state in enforcement and prosecuting these individuals?
It's supposed to be neutral, I believe, with DPS, but I will say criminals are capitalizing on the lack of certain laws to make great financial benefit for themselves, and they believe right now that is the financial reward is worth the risk. I think that's a good way to phrase it.
Well, I understand you're testifying neutral, but at the same time, this legislative body needs help, and who better than the actual individuals and the special agents working this particular area to be able to tell us what tools you need so that you can have them there ready at your disposal from the law enforcement side. So if there is, I'd like to have an opportunity to visit with you and the captain to better address this and see if we need to possibly work on some upgrades on legislation with respect to the criminal aspect of this.
Yes, sir. A bigger hammer would be helpful.
All right. All right. Second, I want to make clear, I support this piece of legislation because I've heard from a number of my constituents out in West Texas, and the oil and gas industry is so valuable to my district itself and to the rest of the state. But I want to make clear with respect to the industry that we are not, if we move forward down this road, I don't think that the intent, and I don't think that your vision is now for you to become the private security of all of this industry in the oil and gas, industry. You are only tasked with the enforcement part once somebody breaks the law. And I want to make clear to the industry, and I'm assuming that you also would want to make it clear because you need this help if, in fact, we were to move forward. You cannot be everywhere all at once. You're going to need the industry also to participate in this. They have the resources. through private security forces also that can address this? And in fact, have you benefited from the investigation of some of these incidents where those security individuals that the industry has hired has been able to assist you as well?
Yes, sir. We work directly with industry partners. We meet with them both monthly at major meetings to discuss ongoing, basically, instances of theft that have impacted their specific companies or trends across the other companies. And then I also they reach out directly to me. I believe ConocoPhillips texted me this morning, asked me to look over a case because they've just recently been targeted and they had a theft that occurred that someone stole precious metals from their facilities, shutting down a pump location. So they're actually texting me this morning when I was getting on a plane to be here. So it's, we work directly with them to help them when it comes to the criminal offenses that have occurred where they are the victim. We're not, proactively providing security at their locations, but they're basically saying, we've been victimized, here's a report, we need help someone investigating to find the subject that's committed this crime.
Yeah. I'm assuming, for example, when an Eagle passed in Maverick County, it's part of the Eagle Fort shell, during the time that we were receiving an unusual high number of migrant surges that was taking place through Maverick County, a number of those oil and gas operators out there needed to beef up their private security in order to address those trespassers and just incidents that were taking place, fences being torn down, stuff like that. That's how come I'm familiar with the industry and how they actively try to engage and address as a situation may change either, weekly or sometimes daily. And so I want to make sure that we're on the same page here and that you're sending the same message from the state's law enforcement side that we need the industry also to heavily participate in this and assist you as well for the enforcement part of it. So I understand from the testimony here today also that you're basically plugging holes, that you need an organized unit for this from law enforcement. But are you moving forward, since your testimony has been that this is very organized crime taking place, are you developing a scenario and a chart of who, ultimately somebody is leading this? Are we going after those leaders without you breaching any confidentiality or security issues?
The Texas Department of Public Safety has multiple investigations into major organized crime groups with the intent of shutting those down as we can and advancing those investigations.
And I'm not just talking, yes, the individual that drives the truck, obviously they play a part in this, the individual that opens up the gate, but we need to send a message, and hopefully this will be, in this committee, we will start sending that message to those rogue operators out there and these criminal operators, that this is the end. There's going to be people at the state level and law enforcement that are going to be addressed on it, and we're beefing up and hopefully helping you all in those efforts. And I want to make sure that they understand this is not just going to be the low-level criminal offenders, but that we're actually targeting those that are actually, doing all of this at the much higher end also. And so I want to know from you whether that is in fact going to be something that you're developing, whatever chart is necessary to make sure that you're picking out those responsible up in the hierarchy chain of this organized crime.
Yes, sir. We have a hierarchy charge with subjects that have been identified, subjects that have been indicted, subjects that have been arrested, that are not only low-level subjects committing thefts, but high-end tops of organizations that are facilitating the theft of millions of dollars of the petroleum products across West Texas.
After this meeting, I'd like an opportunity with either you or your captain or as your supervisor to receive some additional information on this, and we can work outside of this, just so that I can better get an understanding as to what you all are doing. I think this is great. I understand you're caught sometimes in a difficult position, but hopefully we'll make things better for you.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions from this witness? All right. Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Todd Staples. We show you registered as Todd Staples on behalf of, you're the president, and on behalf of the Texas Oil and Gas Association, you're testifying for HB48. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Staples, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. Representatives, Dean, thank you for the chance to be here today. My name is Todd Staples, representing members of the Texas Oil and Gas Association testifying in favor of House Bill 48. We appreciate Chairman Darby's leadership on this issue. and the entire legislature focusing on this very real problem. This problem has become very pronounced. We have observed through working with local law enforcement, with the security teams that many member companies hire, that there is a higher level of sophistication. There is a organized criminal activity that is difficult to combat. We believe that our local law enforcement, our local district attorneys are doing a fantastic job, but there's a missing piece, and we believe Chairman Darby's bill is a key component to bringing a dedicated task force within DPS that can take this data on a collective basis and then deploy the resources as needed to help tackle this problem. And here's some data for you. According to DPS's work, working with industry intelligence, there's an estimate that of approximately 2% of all oil is being stolen that's produced in the state. So think about that for a moment. The Energy Information Administration said that in 2024, 2.08 billion barrels of oil were produced in Texas. 2% of that, 41.6 million barrels in oil. $3.2 billion of value before the last couple of weeks when it's dropped a little bit. If it's just 1%, $1.6 billion, that's plenty to attract criminal activity in the state. And we know that's not all they're doing, right? And so what you're doing here is protecting citizens' lives way beyond the oil patch and beyond the men and women that are working that industry, and you're protecting assets. Just a few weeks ago, there was an explosion from what appears to be an attempted oil field theft, a terrible situation, burned for 2 or 3 days. And we just need to send the right message. And we appreciate the work that you all are doing. The resources at DPS will go a long way to addressing this. DPS has been a consistent partner, but they need the resources. They need the dedicated unit. And so we're supportive of HB48. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Members? All right. Hearing none. On my behalf, I appreciate, that's why I became an attorney, because I wasn't good at math. So I thank you for breaking that down for me. That was very informative. Thank you,
Good.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The chair calls Ed Longenecker. Ed, we have you as Ed Longenecker, President of the Texas Independent Producers and Royalty Owners Association. You are testifying for HB 48, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice